Hey, it's Coach Maggie with another Soul Food Sunday. Last week in my devotions, I was reading the story in Luke, but it's in two other Gospels, about the woman who'd been bleeding for 12 years. Now, it is so hard for us, even as a woman, to imagine going through that 12 years of suffering. The story tells us that she'd spent pretty much her last penny going to different doctors. And imagine medicine during that age. I'm sure they had her doing all kinds of things to try to cure her, but nothing worked. So she hears about a man named Jesus. Have you been struggling with something? Maybe just even a few years, but imagine 12 years. And so for her to reach out, she had to really humble herself. The Jewish people had strict rules about blood and coming in contact with blood. And so 12 years, I'm sure she was very anemic. I'm sure she was very poor. She'd spent all her money. Maybe she had been married at one point, but she probably wasn't now. Because again, she was considered unclean. Even if she had kids, they may have been taken away from her. Definitely would have been grounds for her husband to divorce her. So imagine the lonely life this woman led. Now, none of us, I would imagine, have gone through that. But maybe there's something that you have been living with. Maybe it's not 12, maybe it's more than 12. But something that you pretty much have given up hope on. You've probably prayed about it, you've asked. Maybe you've spent a lot of money. Maybe it's a health issue, infertility. Maybe you've been in a relationship that seems to be going nowhere and you feel stuck. A job, whatever it is, maybe finances for the last 12 years or more have been a strain constantly. Family relationships that have been strained. Any number of things you could be feeling similar to what this woman was thinking. Is there any hope? But it tells us that she went and reached out for Jesus, just wanted to touch. If she could just touch the hem of his garment, she was hoping that just maybe all the things that she'd heard about this man would be true. I just want to encourage you. Now, chances are a lot of you will say, but you don't know, I have prayed. But just a few chapters later, Jesus is talking to his disciples. And he tells a very familiar passage that we know about. And he says where to ask and where to seek and where to knock. But the verb that's used, and I'm sure you probably know this, the verb is an ongoing verb. So it's not just ask once and say, okay, I didn't get the answer, but it's ask and keep asking, seek and keep seeking, knock and keep knocking. And then he says the door will be open. Now, does that mean that we're all going to be healed like she was miraculously healed? I believe we'll all get an answer. It may not be the answer that we were hoping, but the Bible also tells us that when he doesn't answer the way we prayed and hoped for, his grace is sufficient. So he will provide the way. There's another story further in the Bible, and it's Paul. He says he has a thorn in the side, and there's a lot of different predictions about what that thorn was. Some think that maybe he was partially crippled. Some think he was possibly blind. A lot of his letters were, he would even say, this is in my handwriting. So people think, maybe there was an issue there that he couldn't see. But for whatever reason. But he says 3 times he asked to be healed. But then it was like the Lord spoke to him and said, my grace is sufficient. And from that point on, he stopped asking because he had the answer. God was saying, no, whatever that thorn was, I am more than that. I'm going to take care of you through that. So I just want to encourage, maybe it isn't 12 years. Maybe it's something you've only been struggling with a week. Whatever it is, God is able. He's more than able. And a lot of times, most of the time, he doesn't answer it exactly like we think. He often changes situations. He changes circumstances. He gives us a peace about certain things. And then often, years later, we realize that's what he was doing when I was going through that. So I just want to encourage you, because I know so many of you are going through a lot of things. But I also want to encourage you to take to heart, to keep asking, to keep seeking, and to keep knocking. And then the beautiful thing is that we don't have to be afraid to ask questions. And you know what? It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to even shout and yell at the Lord. He is a loving, loving person, and he is not offended. And when we ask specifically, why aren't you answering? And we listen, we may get that answer that we've been needing to hear. So I just want to encourage you today. Keep asking, keep reaching out to him, and then listen, because a lot of times he's whispering, but we are too busy going on, moving on, that we miss out. So be encouraged today. Take some time and begin asking, begin seeking, and begin knocking, and then listen for the answer, and then walk in faith that he has got you. Take care. Have an amazing week. Come back tomorrow for my 5-minute Monday mindset. As always, God bless.